I think, one of the challenges that we all face in this CRE community, that those of us that are in the trenches every single day, is how you get scale. What is scale, right? And how do you get traction, adoption? What have you seen in the investments that you've made to date, Reonomy, Roofstock, what have you, where they've been successful at achieving Compass? I think it's a little bit different only in that sense as that residential market. I think, started here in New York, or maybe not. I mean, what have you seen that has been successful in some of these startups getting scale in this real estate tech landscape?
So one of the extremely nerdy things we do here at Bain Capital is we think about everything in terms of a 2x2 matrix, where you got sort of 2 dimensions, and then you can think about 4 boxes across those 2 dimensions. I'll try to paint a word picture here. So on this question of scale, the 2 dimensions we would think about would be local versus national, theoretically even international, although generally speaking, real estate is a nation-by-nation business. And then sort of single segment, so think large owners, versus multi-segment, so including brokers, including government, including tenants, etc. And so the bad box is local, single segment.
Right.
And there's many companies, because it is a local business, that start in that small box and have no credible plan for getting out of it.
Right.
So you'll meet companies that really have nailed, the data in Chicago, and they dominate. All the large owners need to buy their data.
But how do you?
But tell me about San Diego and how the broker's going to buy your data in San Diego. They have no story for that.
Right.
So Reonomy, we think, solved that elegantly by starting a small hot fire in New York, but then immediately being able to have a national vision, not just a multi-city vision, but a national vision that went beyond owners to tenants and brokers and lenders and all the relevant segments. Easier said than done. But I think it's one thing for companies to think about is often when you're starting a business, you really need one passionate user base.
Right.
And it's not wrong to focus on, one square on that grid.
Right.
But having a credible game plan for expanding geographically and expanding by segment.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And I know Rich's story at Reonomy, not to turn this into an infomercial for Reonomy, but you're welcome, Rich. But that's exactly what they did. So let's go through a couple other categories. So you mentioned, sorry to bring it up again, Matt, WeWork.
Yeah.
What's your thought process? What's your sort of premise around co-working and where you think that, what's left in it, where it could go, and what it could look like in the future?
David, you have a theory here? You want to jump in?
I mean, it's a little bit like the hotel business at some scale, where I think historically you've had very limited segmentation of different types of companies that operate on different duration cycles, different aesthetics, etc. And so it was either the, I don't call it Motel 6, but a very basic look and feel if you want Regis plug and play, or it was long-term investment, et cetera. And I think WeWork said, hey, we've got a different model, and there's a much bigger addressable market than I think anyone realizes there. I think over time, that aesthetic, that look, et cetera, works really well for some, but not every traveler wants the cutting edge, most whatever hotel. Some people like this look or that look. So I think there's definitely going to be continual evolution. I think it won't be the only brand that wins. I think they're still trying to figure out whether they can create real technology and scale advantages that makes a company or entrepreneur care whether they have the entire footprint with them or that they choose different brands in different locations. And so I think they've proven out how deep that market potentially is. They've got a lot of square footage to fill themselves and a lot of capital that creates a long tail on that. But also I think there are other brands and solutions that take place in some tangential things that are not pure play co-working but relate to medical and other sectors where similar things probably will have some legs. I don't know if they're quite as big, but
and the landlord's getting into that game.
Yeah,
clearly.
Well, I think so an analogy here that I've thought about is you may be familiar with this company Square in the payment space. So Square came out with this little rectangle cube that you plug into your iPhone and you can take payments. And it was really a gimmick at first, and it was people at the flea markets who could all of a sudden take credit cards, etc. But it started to catch on at coffee shops. And what was fascinating to me is the whole payments industry became obsessed with Square.
Yeah.
This company, Verifone, that used to be very valuable, almost went out of business chasing the dongle. Everyone's launching dongles. They're like, you can go down to your B of A branch and collect 15 dongles for free with B of A on it. Meanwhile, Square had moved on. They started building beautiful software to serve larger retailers.
Yeah.
They launched a delivery service. They launched a lending service. The dongle was never the business.
Yeah, right.
The business was, how do you serve a particular demographic and psychographic of business owner who wants a better experience related to payments than they could get from First Data or whomever? And WeWork has to do the same thing. Co-working is not going to create tens of billions of dollars of value.
No, it's been around forever.
It's not a new concept.
Right.
And as I said, the sort of lipstick on a pig aesthetic elements of WeWork are not the thing.
Right.
Everyone's rushing to copy that right now, just as all the payments companies launched their own dongles. Meanwhile, WeWork has moved on.
Yeah.
Will they move on in as successful a way as Square did to continue to capture the loyalty and love of a segment and grow that segment and make it an international segment and offer more software and more tools to continue to widen the gap between them and the people selling space? I don't know, but that's the game plan.
Right.
And meanwhile, people are chasing, you're sort of fighting the last war
Right.
around adding amenities.
Right.
So I think fundamentally the fluidity of commercial leases has increased.
Right.
They'll be shorter and more flexible.
Yes.
Spaces will look different. Square feet per head has gone down and will stay down forever. It's just new office architectures. That's table stakes.
Right.
Whether anyone else will create billions of dollars of value, I question.
Right.
And whether WeWork can maintain and grow their market cap will depend on their next move, not their last move.
Right. That's great insights. What we did a conference last year, specifically in LA, just on driverless cars. Is that a space that Bain Capital Ventures is looking at in any degree, in any capacity?
We're looking at
What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, so we are looking at the enabling technology. Again, I would say in general, hardware is not our jam. And so I don't think that we are necessarily the ones you'd bet on to find the next great Waymo or sort of like actual manufacturer. I think the famous story about the advent of the car and the highway system, of course, is the creation of McDonald's. Yeah. Right. It's a sort of second order impact of this new technology. I think we're way more likely to find the McDonald's than we are to like back the next car company. Right. And I do think that real estate is one of those theories where real estate will be built, where it'll be filled. Yeah. What happens to the city?
Yeah, sure.
What happens to the suburbs, the exurbs?
Parking lots, garages, the whole thing.
We made an investment in 2017 in a company called Passport that is the leading payments company in transportation.
Got it.
So when you go to pay for parking or transit or increasingly tolling, you're using Passport's software. They sell to the parking authority or the municipality. And our view is that the digitization of transportation payments is part and parcel of this autonomous vehicle thing. Your car is going to pay for your parking in 5 years. Yeah. Your car is going to do its own relationship with the tolling system and network. And we want to own the plumbing behind all of that move to digital payments and transportation. Got it.
What about just throwing some categories and concepts? What about the blockchain? And I was corrected at a conference we had recently in Utah where we had some real thought leaders from MIT and other places that were really giving us 101 on blockchain.
Yeah.
And I introduced somebody and I used the word blockchain. And he was very adamant about correcting me. The blockchain. So if you don't gotta get that right. So what's the thought process around the blockchain from your perspective? Is it something?
I'm sure these guys want me to answer.
They're all looking at you. They're all looking at you. Everybody's deflecting.
Well, I would say, when people say the blockchain, of course they mean the Bitcoin blockchain. We are probably here bigger believers in Bitcoin and its blockchain than we are in some generic blockchain that's going to change everything. We think about crypto as three things. One is the sort of investing ecosystem around crypto, blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain being at the center of that, but all the crypto assets. We're heavy into that. We've made major investments. We believe that crypto is a new asset class. and that as such it needs elements of market structure, ways to buy, ways to sell, way to exchange, custody, etc.
Yeah.
Enterprise blockchain, which is this notion that every database should be a distributed ledger that's automatically synchronized, we think is pretty much bunk in general.
Okay, there you go.
And most of the use cases don't require anything like a blockchain, much less a the blockchain. Should most companies upgrade their databases? Yes, of course. Do most companies do that? No, they don't do that. They do that every 15 years when forced. And so building a business, trying to get everyone to simultaneously upgrade their database to a shared architecture is going to be a slog. So we've been, outside of certain capital markets applications, pretty skittish about that.
Got it.
And then the final element of crypto is distributed applications. So will the next Airbnb not have any company at the center of it, but just be an app that we all use in a collaborative system with its own internal currency? Quite possible. Not next year, not the year after that, but that's a space where we find very intriguing. We spend a lot of time thinking about it, even though it's like on the futuristic end.
Got it. Yeah. Guys, you adding to that, or just let Matt have that one? Let him own it? Matt's a crypto guy?
In the spirit of the blockchain, I suppose I should take what Matt has already done and build on it and then pass it on to David. But I think he's captured it well.
Yeah, these guys want to let me be wrong, right? Versus be right.
Put it out there now. You weren't shy about it.
It's on the internet forever.
There you go. It's on the internet
Whether I like
forever.
it or not.
Until it gets on the blockchain. The other category that we've been talking a lot about, or ones that I read a lot about and I study a lot, is AI. And at this sort of mini conference that we just had in Utah, it was a big topic of conversation. We talk a lot about the impact of AI on fintech and the amount of jobs on, private equity, Wall Street, what have you, that have been impacted on trading and what have you. Do you see like AI having a profound impact on the commercial real estate brokerage professional? People that are in the category that, are accumulating data, information, processing transactions. What's your thoughts about AI and the service side of the business, and how much you think, in terms of job compression is going to happen in this category?
It's a pretty big leap of faith. I mean, even just for a lot of commercial real estate owners, like optimizing working capital, like really basic things that can help change the cash flow components of their business, have been slow to adopt. And so I think the idea that there's going to be a 3-generation skip essentially in technology to that, I personally am skeptical about. I think the area where there will be more incremental evolution and sort of tied into that is spatial visualization, and where the technology gets so good that the way that people think about the construction of space, the selection of space before actually seeing it improve dramatically. I think a lot of developers and commercial real estate owners are trying to leverage that to sell units that haven't been built, to advertise to a tenant that while this slab to slab empty floor may not seem impressive, like let me walk you through what this really will be. I think that's an easier adoption.
Makes sense.
I think can save on some of the construction, design, marketing costs potentially. I think it's a much longer journey before it's actually really disintermediating
jobs,
the brokers and some of the people in that ecosystem. But maybe I'm more conservative than Brian or Matt on that.
I think what we might see is more consolidation as the firms that are quicker to adopt technology get benefits from that technology, get benefits from general scale, and then get benefits from the scale of the data that they're collecting. The problem with a lot of AI is, it's not fully all the way there in terms of kind of being autonomous and how people use it. And so you need organizations that are sophisticated enough to take the data, to take the insights off the data, and to take action from them. And so I think we'll see some consolidation around organizations that get better at that. I think the other thing we'll see, though, is technology that maybe isn't all the way to AI, but is goes from just data, which people know there's value in, but they don't know what to do with, to insight, and then maybe even one more step, which is a recommended or even automated action to help that business user, who may not necessarily be the most sophisticated data user in the world, do their job in a more efficient way. So I think David framed it well when he said there's multiple generations of evolution that need to take place, and I think that might be the near-term kind of couple items we see as some more consolidation and then more use of these tools that make taking action really easy.
Got it. So a couple more questions for you guys. So one of the things that we talk about when I go around to a lot of the conferences that I'm fortunate to speak at or that we host is, where people say, well, when is Google going to come into this space? Or, when is Amazon coming in and what if? And so like, what don't we know now about this industry that, we should be looking for? I mean, what does propel a Google to want to come into this space, or a Microsoft or a Salesforce to really start to invest in it heavily and change the dynamics? What should we be looking for as those that are in the trenches every day working in it?
Google did incubate and launch a smart buildings startup. And I think, what's interesting about that, it was Google sort of as an owner. They're obviously a big owner.
Yeah, same with Facebook, same with a lot of them. Yep,
Apple's a big owner.
Apple. Yep.
I think in terms of affecting people's lives, Amazon, Amazon is a major owner and user of warehouse space.
Right.
They have a point of view on how this whole country's distribution real estate should be optimized. And I can see them having, first, a good impact in that all their competitors, and they don't own all of retail yet, all their competitors need to get better.
Yeah.
And so for existing warehouse owners, I think the increase in the number of shipments has been great. That aspect of commercial real estate has been thriving. I do worry about the next phase when Amazon has a way of ultimately gobbling everything up.
Yeah.
And so I would, as we do in almost all of our businesses, I would keep a close eye on Amazon.
There you go. Very good. Last couple questions. When you guys are looking at this sector right now, and as you said, Matt, we're still early and in the evolution of this. What do you think in the next couple years could be the next sort of category killer? And I mean in a good way. Like WeWork just came in and dominated that category. Where do you think the next big sort of behemoth is going to come from? Is it going to come from an existing startup that's in this space? Is it going to come from M&A? Is it going to come from roll-ups? Is it going to come from the outside? In your sort of crystal ball, where do you see the next big thing coming from?
Crystal balls, guys?
And we, in the article we wrote, talked about a few, I think, trends, and it's hard to sort of, like, if we knew the answer to that.
Right, and you don't want to tell.
Go out
all the
building
other
it, yeah.
Venture community.
I think that there is, whether it's Reonomy, whether it's House Canary, others, I think a continual evolution, the quality of data and the value that that data brings to people who are either investing or playing in that space. And so I think that there are other unicorns to be built in the real estate data space over time.
Right.
I think it'll be interesting to see how the Zillow, Open Door, OfferPad sort of immediate transaction market plays out over time. Mm-hmm. Is there a corollary in commercial real estate where there are a bunch of owners for whatever reason that don't want a 90, 180 day process, and that becomes interesting in terms of a very different model for acquisition and transaction costs. I don't know that it gets to $1 billion, but definitely kind of opportunity given the trillions of value in the space, and potentially something around kind of that visualization if someone really makes a leap and a step change technology in how we look at space. There's a ton of value in that, and think that there's still a lot of opportunity in and around kind of the home or on the residential side of connecting how people think about construction, outfitting, vendors. I mean, House has built a pretty big business sitting at the center of that. I think that's great, but kind of not all the way there end to end. And so there's still opportunity in that huge residential segment that Wayfair is pursuing from one angle and building technology and how to insert a chair into your existing living room. And others are in that space, and Amazon over time may play there as well.
Yeah.
Right.
To me, I look at a lot of the kind of data opportunities as the place where I think there'll be a big spike. And again, it's the combination of data plus workflows so that you make that data accessible to a lot of folks in the market. And I think that's where we'll see multiple, is in different classes of data, different use cases of that data within this ecosystem.
But that's encouraging. That's a great thing.
I mean, I would add a couple things. I think So smart buildings is a phrase that's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But you asked about artificial intelligence. That's an area where I actually see AI being applied.
Right.
Heavily censored buildings with operational decisions being made by artificial intelligence.
Right.
I think there are still way more dumb buildings than smart buildings. There's a huge ROI on that upgrade. So I think when that happens around energy, HVAC, all the aspects of a building are actually run by software versus by human beings.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of value to be created there. And then I think in terms of the capital value chain, right now we have these integrated models of owners who also manage, who also market, who lease up. It's sort of a one-stop shop where in general, in lots of other asset classes, the capital is a separate thing from property management entirely, from marketing and lease up.
Yep.
And so I think as capital continues to flood into the space, you may see some disaggregation of those verticalized models into specialized models, and that'll be very disruptive for some existing players.
Great, that's terrific, that's great. Well, thanks guys, this was terrific.
I really enjoyed it.
Is in my day job of trying to help build this CRE tech ecosystem, one meeting, one conversation, one presentation at a time, it's wonderful affirmation for everybody that's in the space to have a company like Bain Capital Ventures in the space. And that's why it was so important for me to sort of let my readers and my community know that you guys are here and you're active, because a couple years ago, I don't know if I could have gotten in here, to be honest. I would have had to.
You could have charmed your way in.
Well, thanks. I think so. My wife might disagree with you. But it's a wonderful affirmation and validation of the industry. We need you guys here. We appreciate the time and the leadership and the investment dollars in this space. And I know I'm going to get a ton of emails afterwards. And my friends on the startup side are going to be like, well, how do we get in touch with them? So how do people, if they want to know more about Bain Capital Ventures, how do they get in touch with you?
I think it's actually pretty easy. Email is our operating system here. The convention is just first initial, last name. So mharris@baincapital.com. There you go.
Wow.
My response time is, can be measured in days sometimes, rarely if ever in weeks.
That's where the hate mail on the block, on blockchain.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there.
Angry crypto guys. And then Brian Goldsmith, B. Goldsmith at Bain Capital, and David is D.A. Snyder at baincapital.com. David, of course, is an executive and entrepreneur in residence, so less likely to write a check, but actually has actual real knowledge about how to build a company. So, pros and cons, but feel free to be in touch with any of us.
Matt, David, Brian, thank you so much for your time, guys. Really appreciate it, and hope to see you at one of our upcoming events at CREtech.com in the very near future. Thanks, guys.
We look forward to it.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.